we just had a very interesting, scary experience.
We'll get back to that in a minute. Welcome back to another journal-worthy journey. We're going to be trying to do something a little different. We're super far behind on our recordings, and I'd like to try to make our edits go a little quicker and speed things up. I've been trying different things, had plenty of setbacks, but part of speeding things up is trying to just use less of the content that we've recorded. We've recorded way too much stuff. So I want to try to start skipping through things a little bit more and just provide you guys with a little bit of the description of what's going on, like the different areas, the things we're experiencing. So not totally omit it, but just, you know, accelerate it a little bit. Instead of telling stories through our recordings, tell stories, right? So one of the places we went to after I got done with work was the Mantua Reservoir. Yeah, that's Mantua is how you say that, apparently. The reservoir itself is a sizable lake that has opportunity for fishing and boating. There are some parking lots that are around it. You can get access to different points and bring in your watercraft for enjoying the lake, or bring a mountain bike, because it's set around a bunch of mountains. You actually drive up a bit when you're coming in from the west. So up through the mountains into the area where this reservoir is at. It's a sizable little lake. It takes a bit to walk around. I'm not sure what the actual distance is around it, but it did take us a little bit to get around. Going slow, enjoying ourselves, and yeah, it's just Utah beauty, you know. So that was a cool little one. Nothing really worth spending a whole lot of time on. So again, glad we're just kind of skipping through this. But yeah, that was one of many pretty reservoirs that they have. All right, so let's talk salt. We went to Salt Lake City. It's called that for a reason, right? It's got the Great Salt Lake. It's not the only thing that's got a ton of salt out there. One of the other cool places to go visit, if you have time, and it can be a little bit of a drive, it was for us, but it's the Bonneville Salt Flats. This is a huge area of land that is covered in salt. So much salt that it goes down as deep as 5 feet in places. And when you're driving out there, you're just gonna start seeing salt all over the sides of the road. This place is called the Salt Flats, not only because of the salt content, but because it's so flat across. This is where they set a whole bunch of land speed records. They've done stuff out there for years, not as much recently for the top end stuff, but I'm sure events still go on all the time out there. But it's a really cool piece of land just because of that kind of history, and just in general, like it's kind of a cool thing to go check out.
It's pretty cool so far. We're not even there yet.
Yeah. So we took the 2.5-hour drive down from our RV park in Tremont, heading all the way around the Salt Lake and way down until we got to a visitor center. Along the path we saw big mounds of snow, what looked like snow anyways, right? And it was salt. And these were actually salt processing plants, right? It's 90% table salt, the stuff that's on the ground out there. So they actually collect it and process it out there and deliver it to you for using on your food.
Rude.
I love having cameras everywhere.
Shove in my face.
But driving out there, we eventually got to a rest stop area.
This is so weird being on this. It looks like snow, it looks like dirty snow, but it's salt.
We weren't sure if this was where they actually ran from for the all of the sort of high-speed events and things, the breaking land speed records and racing and whatever they do. The one curious thing to me is, where do they actually do the world speed records and stuff? Because there's no signs. So we hung out there for a little bit, flew the drone, got some kind of neat video footage, which was pretty tough to get on something that's as stark white as a ton of salt sitting out there. But it was okay, thanks to a little bit of cloud cover. Anyways, we weren't sure if that was the area where that stuff was done, and it turns out it wasn't. It's still a decent stop there, but if you keep going, you'll get down to Speedway Road, and turning down that's where it led us to the spot that actually is where all of those runs occurred from.
You've arrived.
We weren't sure if we wanted to bring the truck out onto the salt. I mean, it's, you know, you think about how bad road salt can be. This is pure salt. So you know that you're gonna sling it all up on the undercarriage and everything.
So this is the face that I get right now, because he really wants to drive the car out onto the salt when he's repeatedly said multiple times, no,
Yeah.
we're not going to drive out on the salt because I don't want to kick salt up into the undercarriage of the truck.
Right.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
No, we're not. And then he gets over here, and now he's
It's,
really wanting
do you know what's driven out here? Like, we're here. We get to go out there. It's right there. Other cars are out there doing it. So they're fine, we'll be fine. Yeah, there's some concern about the salt and stuff that it's gonna kick up on the truck, but I mean, come on, we're doing it. I'm getting the drone, you're gonna fly the drone.
Okay.
We're gonna get some video footage of the truck driving out there, where legends were made. Okay?
Fine.
Hell yeah. But after a little bit of sitting there and just seeing other people drive around, we decided to follow in their tracks and head out there. It is important to be kind of safe if you're gonna drive on the salt. You could see on the way out there, and even from that area, that there was quite a bit of water. There were even some caution signs about it. So in order to avoid that, we just drove where we could see people already driving around and took the truck out. It was pretty fun.
You're gonna get a real good reaction from me on this camera right now.
It's a bit like driving on snow or sand, but a little bit different in just exactly how it feels, I think. I've driven a little bit on both, but never at these kind of speeds. So we took the truck up to 80 miles an hour. Taylor had a blast, she was laughing. You know, that's a lot of fun. And yeah, I had the drone chase us a little bit as well. So really cool experience. Did require us washing off the undercarriage pretty good after we got out of there. Yeah, that was a super fun thing. I would love to go back there again someday with an even faster vehicle. I was going to take the truck more than 80 out there, but you know, seeing little cars and stuff cruise around, like, yeah, I could definitely go faster in a vehicle that's more designed for those fast speeds. It'd be a lot of fun. So maybe one day, but otherwise, yeah, it's just a really cool thing to kind of go check out and see. Even if you don't drive on it, go out to that rest stop or just into the area and check it out. It's everywhere out there. So let's get back to that thing that we teased at the start of the video. That was some video that we shot from our drone as we got ourselves in a little bit of a pickle. Kind of teased it there at the beginning. Nothing ended up happening, but let me tell you the story. That was another reservoir. We already talked about one. This is another one that was recommended to us by my brother. Causey Reservoir. I'd like to go back there again at some point. It was really nice. So this reservoir is a good little drive away from where we were staying, up through more hills and mountains. You know, it's Utah. Very pretty, heading up to the area. And then when we got up there, it turns into a little dirt road kind of winding along this reservoir that's just nestled right inside of the hills. It's really one of the most scenic little spots for some kind of more peaceful, you know, tranquil type water activities. I think this one's too small for any kind of power watercraft. So on this one, you can bring out your floats, bring out your paddle boards, canoes, kayaks, float around in this kind of narrow channel that just winds between the hills up there. Maybe someday we'll get a chance to go back and better experience it, but we just decided to drive up there as part of a driving around, seeing things type trip for the day. This allowed us to go and see the reservoir and just enjoy some of the beauty. So I'm not sure how close we're going to end up being on this because we don't have that wide angle lens yet, but we are here at the Causey Reservoir and it is a beautiful day. A lot of people out paddling and kayaking, you know, on the paddle boards, all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, we have none of those. But we've seen a lot of people with air-up ones, and so I think we're going to be looking into that when we get back. Because
that would be cool to just carry along with us and not take up much space and
yeah,
allow us to go have some fun whenever we see places like this.
Yeah.
Just hop in.
So after we got up there, we stopped for a moment at one spot, kind of took a look around, and then decided we'll give Taylor a little bit of a chance to fly the drone, get some practice with it. So she took over flying the drone. I continued to drive for a moment, but then pretty quickly she was struggling and a little uncomfortable with the drone up there. So we decided to go ahead and swap, and I still wanted to get a little bit of video footage with it and practice of my own. So Taylor took over driving, I took over flying, and that's when things kind of went wrong. Taylor continued heading back down the road, and since I'd driven us in there, I don't think she was quite aware of what the correct path was for getting back out. She made a turn without realizing that that was not the way that we came in.
So I thought I was taking us down a road that would eventually like take us south of the reservoir and take us out of the area down to Park City. And we have no signal, so obviously I can't check this on a GPS map or anything like that. So we turned down this road where other people had parked. Did not realize that it was a dead end. But cars are parked on the side of the road, and in a big dually, it's already hard enough trying to get around cars. Well, this car decided it needed to come out, and it was pulling a trailer that had a toy on it, and had to like bring the mirrors in and had to pull to the side of the road, the little space that we had.
There was no better options further down.
No better options.
Stop where we're at and hug the wall as best we could, because getting any closer to them wouldn't have fared any better.
And that trailer was really close to hitting us.
Got some drone footage.
I have some drone footage of it. But That was the closest that we've ever been.
When I was watching the drone video, I couldn't see the distance between the rear fender of the truck and that trailer as you passed us. I couldn't see that anymore. It was too close. So it doesn't look like we actually got hit because we, number one, didn't feel it, and number two,
yeah.
I stopped and took a look real quick after that, and it looked like we were fine. But yeah, that was a little tight.
We learned a lesson a little bit on that one.
So we were fine. We learned a little lesson about watching where you're going and maybe backing out if things seem to be getting tight. But we swapped drivers. I ran around the truck and took over driving, and we went down to the end of that road, turned around, and were able to make it back out without any other further close calls or incidents. So learned a quick little lesson there, but it wasn't at any kind of cost. So from there, we headed up to Park City. And Park City, if you know what that is, that's the area where they held the Olympics at one point, the Winter Olympics. Of course, this was summer, nothing was going on at the time. But if you watched our very first video, this was part of the opening intro to our very first video on the channel.
This is pretty cool. I'd hurt myself though, but it's pretty cool.
What was kind of cool there at the time, and we didn't even know this was going on, but just happened to come across it, is that they've got the big ski jumps, right? It's not just your normal ski setup. They've got all the big things from the Olympics. So there were people there that were training and practicing on the Olympic jumps, but since it was summer, there's no snow. So what they were doing is going into a pool. It was pretty neat to actually see this in person.
This is fun. I'm enjoying watching this.
Aside from that, there was a museum where you can see a bit of information about the Olympics.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem of the United States of America.
And a number of other things to do. I'm sure there's mountain biking, all that kind of usual summer activities up there, and then obviously the great winter activities. We'd love to come back for the winter at some point, but never skied there yet. Maybe one day. And so that brings us to the last thing that we ended up doing while we were still in Utah, and that was going and seeing the Golden Spike. This is one of the historical parks that the U.S. government has where you can go learn a bit about some interesting history. At one time, you didn't have a railroad that went all the way across the country, right? I don't think this really went quite all the way across the country, but pretty much. And it was definitely a big thing. So this is where they first made the final connection for the Transcontinental Railway. This was the joining of a couple of the major railways from east to west, and was a big deal for transit back in the day. So when they got done completing this, they had a ceremony when they connected the last link and actually drove a golden spike into the ground. I'm sure they immediately removed that. It's not a very good material to use for holding a rail track together, but it was a big deal at the time, and this whole park is about that particular ceremony. So there's a lot of historical information on the construction and everything there, and then they've actually got a couple of replica locomotives. So it was kind of cool getting to sit down and listen to a presentation, and they were shoveling coal, loading water, and eventually you get to see that locomotive blow its whistle and haul on off.
That's about as fast as our locomotives get going out here because we only have about 2 miles of track. So that was our high speed.
Not really the biggest deal, but if you have the time and you're in the area, it's kind of worth going and checking out, especially if you get a chance to see one of the locomotive shows. So look into the timings and availability of it. Only one of the 2 locomotives was working, but if you get a chance to go check that out, it's kind of a neat little thing. Anyways, that was the last thing we did before packing up and heading out. After that, we moved on to Idaho. So coming up, we're going to be bringing you a video about Yellowstone. That's such an incredible place. So back to one of the big parks. Thanks for joining. We'll catch y'all on the next one.
Okay.
All right, ready to hit the road?
Yep. Ready to go to Idaho.
All right. On to the next part of the journey.
Our journal-worthy journey.
Haha.